Okay, I asked a few Facebook friends what I should talk about on this little webcast, podcast, videocast thing I'm doing. Um, and the biggest responses that I got were talk about the things I really truly love, gaming and music. Well, there hasn't been a whole lot of new music I've been latching onto lately. I've been seeing a number of shows from one band, which I've gotten a little obsessed with, but I'll get into that into later detail. So I figured I should at least hit gaming as the first topic, and what better way to go after it than with the granddaddy of them all, Dungeons and Dragons. It is the game that pretty much started the role-playing hobby. Launched in the early to mid-70s, offshoot of tabletop fantasy wargaming, where a number of guys in the Wisconsin and Minnesota area who were like commanding these huge armies decided to add a fantasy element, and a couple other folks said, hey, you know what would be cool is if we took this and broke this down to where instead of a person controlling an entire army, you get one guy. Now you might have some hirelings and some followers and some hangers-on, but pretty much taking it down to, instead of controlling the 3rd Regiment of this Orc Brigade, you have, Krognock the Skull Crusher. And that kind of added a nice visceral element to it. It let people touch on some of their own Tolkien-esque fantasies, where they'll be reading about Bilbo and Smaug and Aragorn and Legolas and all those other fools. But they could be, if not necessarily those characters, they could be something like that. They could be the center of their own fantasy story. And when you put it in a small group, it becomes collective storytelling. And in the right situations, it can be a hell of a lot of fun. I'm 49 years old. I've been doing tabletop RPGs, is what I was first introduced to, since I was 8. That's 41 years of slinging dice. I was bullied into it. It's the only person I know of. I'm the only person I know of who has ever done that. I had a good friend hanging out at his house. He had an older brother who had D&D books. Needed the players. Basically threatened us to play. Now, when you put 2 8-year-olds at the table who have no clue what's going on, and you have these odd-looking dice, it's like, what the hell is this? You're looking at a 4-sider, it's like something you're going to lay out on the floor of your bedroom to keep the monsters, a monster detection system. Hey, they step on that, it's going to hurt like hell. They'll scream, you'll hear it, and it'll give you a chance to escape. And that's 8-year-old thinking. But the books he had in question were not the intro that a lot of people got, which were either the Metzner, I believe it's Metzner, blue box, or the revampings where it's like basic and expert and companion, whatever. No, my intro was raw. It was, and these were replicas, these are not the original things. They were things like this. D&D, Men and Magic, original pamphlet-sized books, Monsters and Treasure, Underworld Wilderness Adventures, yada yada yada. And I'm not going to show up all of them. Basically, that's what I started with. And reading back on these books in terms of game design and whatnot, wow, what a clusterfuck. I can't really say it any worse than that. But as much of a convoluted mess as they were enough to spark imaginations and inspire an industry. From there, you had the guys, Mark Miller over in Bloomington, Illinois, not too far away from where I am right now, doing Traveler, which was like one of the first science fiction games that ever got any real traction. I was never a huge fan of it. I know other people were. Fantastic game, though. But going back to D&D. D&D has gone through a number of iterations. What I held up was pretty much replicas of the original edition. There was no basic, there was no advanced, there was just Dungeons and Dragons. Shortly after I started playing, the first advanced D&D books started coming out, the Monster Manual, then the Player's Handbook came out a year later, and then about a year and a half after that, because it was delayed, the Dungeon Master's Guide came, and that was a wonderful Christmas for me, because I didn't necessarily have my own books at the time. I was playing with photocopies of these from my friend, and and my parents and my brother got together and they got me those 3 original AD&D books, and that Christmas and Christmas vacation I absorbed them. For years I could literally tell you what was referenced in what page, what paragraph, what column. I've long since lost that knowledge, and it's no big deal. The game itself has been through a number of different editions. I mean, there was first edition AD&D, there was second edition AD&D, which came several years later, I believe 88 or 89, maybe a little sooner than that. Third edition showed up in 2000, a little bit of revision, called 3.5, showed up in 2003. 2008 came 4th edition, and then here 2014, I want to say, was the current edition, 5th edition. All of these editions had strengths and weaknesses. I'm going to talk about a few of them here. First edition AD&D is still my first love. I played a ton of it. I should say it's my first love of D&D. It's not necessarily my first love of gaming, because I played a ton of D&D. I really am kind of tired of the whole high fantasy Tolkien-esque stuff. When I want to do fantasy, I want to do something lower. I want to do more Conan-esque stuff, more pulp fantasy, not a lot of magic, and more swords, less sorcery. More using your wits to overcome things which you have no reason in your right mind to think you can actually beat, but you have to. Anyway, first edition AD&D, still my first love. As convoluted as a mess as the original D&D was, first edition was at least somewhat of a cleanup, but it was still kind of a hot mess of a rule system. Second edition cleaned up a lot of things, put some odd artificial limits in places I didn't necessarily agree with, but it wasn't bad. It took me a long time to actually like second edition, but in the end I did grow to like it. Third edition I like a great deal. I didn't think 3.5 was necessary, and turns out from some of the marketing and from the rumors I hear, being at least on the Outliers retailer in the industry, it was a marketing decision to release 3.5. Most of what that was put in 3.5, what was changed, could have been pretty much put in a smaller rata book that would have been 30 pages at best. And then again, 4th and 5th edition. This all said, there's something I do want to touch on, because current edition, 5th edition, is very much a throwback, whereas each of the others kind of advanced D&D became very much advanced. First edition was kind of it was a kludge. Second edition was a better explained kludge, but it was still a kludge. Third edition was good. It was a solid framework. My big fault with third is the same my big fault with second. I'll get to that in a minute. Fourth, a lot of people will look at 4th edition D&D and go, the less said about it, the better. It's a good game system. It may not necessarily should have been called D&D, because there was enough differences from what had to come before that really alienated some people. The biggest criticism I hear about it, the most common, is it's too much like an MMO. It's too much like World of Warcraft. It's too much like EverQuest. Please shut the fuck up. I say this. Your argument is lazy to the core. EverQuest, Warcraft, even going back to old muds like Oubliette and Adventure and Orthanc on the old Plato Novanet systems, they all, to a program, owe their existence to D&D. So why shouldn't D&D incorporate some of what they've inspired? Now, that said, it didn't always work. And jumping back to 2nd and 3rd edition, I like those editions. 3rd, 3.5, they're pretty much the same damn thing. The things that killed those 2 editions, other than the fact that people stopped buying books eventually, because one thing about RPGs is once you have the books you need, you don't have to buy anymore. Eventually, you reach a saturation point with your audience, book sales slow down, and the company becomes, begins to wonder, how can we make money to survive? Hey, let's put out a new edition. The second and third suffered after a great deal of time because they put out more material than the framework of what they set up could support. Third edition, especially 3.5, there were so many character options and splat books. And with the advent of the third edition, with the open game license, where literally anybody could produce any material for it, as long as it didn't step on the IP of Wizards of the Coast, who owned the game at that point in time. It's like, you want to publish a book of feats, here you go. You want to publish a book of character classes, go nuts. As long as you're not taking anything from our IP and you're using stuff that's based out of the system resource document, which they put free to download for anyone, you're golden. Here's the problem with that, and it's kind of like with the internet. It's like, the good thing about the internet, everyone has a voice. Bad thing about the internet, everyone has a voice. Some of the opinions out there are wacko. Well, a lot of the third-party stuff for D&D, not so good. Not really play-tested, not very balanced. A lot of this material was written for players, or by players for players. And players, I love you dearly, but 90% of the people who play games of this nature are looking for a power trip. It's always bigger, better, faster, more. That doesn't always serve the game well. And like they did, the frameworks tend to start collapsing on themselves when you put that much weight on them. Fourth edition didn't last long enough for that to happen. That being said, I think the framework on that was a little weaker than even those two editions, so it was going to get there sooner. The popularity of such was, hey, here's 4th edition, it's new, it's shiny. Hey, 3rd edition, we're still kind of digging it. That created a divergent thing called Pathfinder. I'll rant on that here in a minute. 5th edition, it's new, it's shiny. It is something that Wizards playtested heavily. In fact, they actually delayed it by a year because their initial playtesting told them what they were doing at that moment was not on the right track for what the players wanted. So they held off, they did more playtesting. Good on them. Kudos, they should be commended for it. What they came out with was something that kind of harkened back to a number of different editions of D&D. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, even 4th. Certain concepts in 4th that came up. Short rest, long rest. Becomes kind of a hand-wavy thing of doing downtime, but also a nice, less, not necessarily a counting way of doing, like, spell recovery, hit point recovery. I don't necessarily like the fact that, hey, after a long rest you get all your hit points back. I personally think wounds take more than that to heal, but we're playing a fantasy adventure game. Some things can just be ignored. And, again, that's grumpy curmudgeon. 5th edition is really good. It's really solid. And one thing they've done, while they still have at least a version of the open game license out, and they had it for 4th, but no one was really interested in doing a whole lot of stuff for 4th edition. The 5th edition third-party stuff's kind of meh. Most of it is. It's very limited. But D&D, the actual core books, have all been fairly solid. But unlike before, where they'd pump out, especially in 3rd edition, where they'd pump out a hardback every 6 to 8 weeks, and a softback or two every 2 to 4. I mean, they were literally, by the end of it, just dropping books like meteors from the sky. You were to play these showers, like, what the hell? I can't keep up. And that's part of what killed it. People couldn't keep up. They're doing, maybe 3-4 books a year. And most of what they're putting out is fairly quality material. They've got the 3 core books. They've got the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, which is more player options and kind of some detailing of the Forgotten Realms area, or area of the Forgotten Realms. Then they have some adventures. The first 2 were all tied in one giant Tyranny of Dragons thing, Horde of the Dragon Queen, Rise of Tiamat. It takes you up to about 15th, 18th level. Out of the Abyss, Princess of the Apocalypse. And then they did Curse of Strahd, which took people back to Ravenloft. I haven't dug into the Curse of Strahd book much. I do know that they kind of leave it open in terms of you can put it in the Forgotten Realms where they're trying to set all the 5th edition stuff, but they leave it open-ended enough you can drop it in your own campaign. You can extrapolate enough material off that to actually run a version of Ravenloft in 5th edition using some of the old source material. But overall, I mean, D&D, it's what I started with. It's what 90% of the RPG players started with. It's had its ups, it's had its downs. Currently, it's riding a nice, mild up. The game certainly got a longer tail than anyone expected. Then you have its offshoot of Pathfinder, which was basically the 3rd edition, 4th edition schism happened with the open game license. As long as they weren't stepping on the IP stuff, someone can literally publish an entirely new game and make money off it. And that's what Paizo did. Like, hey, you don't like 4th edition? Well, play Pathfinder, which is you could call it 3.75. In Pathfinder, I love Galarian. I think it's a fantastic game world. I do not like the amount of material that comes out for it. Because every 6 weeks or so, Paizo dumps about 12 SKUs, 12 items into the marketplace, be it adventures, let's see, Adventure Path adventures, independent adventures, an area source book, a player options thing. They do a card-based adventure game. They'll do a pack for that. They'll do flip mats, which are actually useful for anything, and mat packs. Those I don't mind so much. Those are resources that are usable for about any RPG, specifically any fantasy RPG. You can use them for D&D. You can use them for Chivalry and Sorcery or Pendragon or anything that you need a map for. Then you're like, hey, I need a tavern. Well, you go grab the Pathfinder Flip Mat Tavern, and there you go. Instant Tavern, don't have to worry about it. It's already gridded out for you. 5-foot squares, go nuts. But D&D. It's my first RPG love, though I have fallen out of love with it because, again, I've played so much of it. I'm effectively Tolkien'd out. I loved Greyhawk. I'm not a big fan of Forgotten Realms. I'm not a big fan of Eberron. Both of those worlds have always seemed to me like if you remove the magic from the world, civilization collapses. Period. And I mean, literally just be an apocalypse. And I'm always of the opinion that when you're creating a world, a setting, a milieu, whatever you want to deem it, if your societies and your governments and your cultures can't stand on their own without the fantastic element, they're weak. They have a weak foundation. They will fall down. Something will come up that won't make sense. And more questions will be answered, or excuse me, more questions will arise than can be answered. 5th edition so far has kind of avoided that, but again, it's still high fantasy. I loved Dark Sun. Planescape was interesting, but not my bag. We're just not going to talk about Spelljammer. Wizards in Space, go. Let's do that. Kind of like talking about the old S3 adventure, Expedition to the Barrier of Peace. Hey, you know what's cool? D&D. You know what else would be cool? Finding a Metamorphosis Alpha-type spaceship in the middle of D&D. With Vegapygmies. Ooh, plant men. Scary. Hey, Brutus the Ranger got a laser gun. Oh, wait, this isn't going to unbalance my game at all. Good job, guys. And this is where Paizo just kind of makes me bang my head against the wall. Those cats went and redid it again. In a different form. The Iron God's Adventure Path. Let's introduce sci-fi into our fantasy. There's no way this can be broken. Oh, wait, it's totally can be broken. No. So, that was fucktarded. Again, D&D, first original gaming love. It's the foundation of our hobbies, foundation of what I love. I've since, moved on to other games. And I'll talk about those. A little bit of GURPS, a lot of Hero System, a little bit of Traveler, a little bit of Feng Shui, Chill, Call of Cthulhu, and a smattering of other games along the way. Villains and Vigilantes, Marvel Superheroes, the DC Adventure game, which was basically 3rd edition Mutants and Masterminds. That's about it. I keep saying that's about it, and then keep talking. And I've noticed by my count here, I've been going for about 21 minutes now. Go me. Thumbs up. Thumbs up, monkey. D&D, though, people still play it. There are many stores, like my own, that sell it. There's a convention that was built around it that has come to encompass all gaming. Gen Con happens every year. 60,000 plus people now over in Indianapolis. It's basically take a small city, plant it a convention center, go nuts. I like gaming. I do. Gen Con, especially Gen Con now, kind of pushes my tolerance buttons. Usually, it's a Thursday through Sunday thing, not counting if you get in Wednesday for early check-in. Thursday, hey, yeah, let's play a bunch of games. Friday, let's play some more games. Saturday, you wake up kind of dragging, you may be a little hungover depending on what you did the night before, and like, yeah, I got some games to play. By Sunday, I hate dice. I hate dice. I don't want to look at the damn things. I have games. I may skip them. Like, I just want to go home and curl up into my own bed. Side rant on a convention that's been going on for close to 50 years. 40, whatever. I don't know. I'm not looking at it right now. But no, D&D, gaming in general owes it a giant ass debt. As much as I don't necessarily like to play it anymore, I cannot emphasize enough how much the rest of this hobby would not be around were it not for these 3 books right here. And I'm still learning how to use this stupid webcam, and it's weirdly mirroring things, and old guy technology. We don't always mix. But all you guys playing D&D out there, or any other role-playing game, you owe those books a huge debt of gratitude. Dave Arneson, Gary Gygax, seminal work. Didn't always make the most sense, especially with Gary's later designs. Cyborg Commando, the less said about that, the better. Just basically put that under Steaming Pile. Dangerous Journeys / Dangerous Dimensions / we changing the name so we don't get sued again. The Mythos thing had promise, but for some reason or another he thought he had to rewrite an entire new lexicon of terms. Oh my god, that book was maddening in so many ways. Like, if you just want to call them hit points, just call them fucking hit points, dude. Had promise, but it got shut down. Neither here nor there. Another rant for another time. I'm Dave, the Red-Haired Maniac, ranting on once again. Next topic, who knows? Fuck it, I may post another one tonight. Until then, peace.